Well, hello. Welcome to this quiet little corner of your evening, a safe space where all your worries can melt away, and the world outside grows softer, quieter, and calmer. Before we begin our bedtime story tonight, let's take a moment to settle ourselves. Find a comfortable position, let your body sink into the bed, feel the gentle embrace of your pillow, and allow yourself to let go. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Let it fill your chest, your belly, and now slowly exhale through your mouth. Feel your shoulders soften as you let go. Let's do that again. A deep breath in and a long, gentle sigh out. Notice the rhythm of your breath now, flowing in and out, like the gentle waves of the ocean or the soft rustling of trees in a calm forest. As you listen to my voice, feel the tension melt from your face, your jaw, your neck, and all the way down through your body. With each word, feel yourself drifting closer to stillness, closer to peace. Now allow your mind to let go of the day. Whatever thoughts remain, imagine them gently floating away like clouds across a twilight sky. And as the last light of day fades into the horizon, we'll journey together into a story, a soothing tale to guide you toward restful sleep. Tonight's story is one of calm and wonder, a gentle adventure where dreams and peace intertwine. So close your eyes and let the story carry you away to a world where everything feels soft, safe, and serene. Are you ready? Let's begin. The Mail Carrier of Midnight, a Sleepy Time Fairy Tale. The Midnight Messenger. Under the vast canopy of the night sky, where stars shimmered like scattered diamonds and the moon hung low and heavy with light, the mysterious mail carrier began her nightly journey. She was an ethereal figure, gliding through the world in silence, her silver cloak trailing behind her like wisps of cloud. In her hands she carried a satchel unlike any other, woven from threads of starlight and lined with the softest velvet. Inside this satchel, letters glowed faintly, delicate slips of paper infused with ancient magic. Each letter was a message of courage, hope, and light, crafted with care and destined for a child in need. The letters were no ordinary mail. They were born from the whispers of the universe itself, written in the language of dreams and sealed with the soft hum of stardust. The mail carrier never spoke aloud, but the forest knew her name, and the wind carried her secrets. Her mission was sacred. Every night, her footsteps left no trace, yet her letters left an indelible mark on the hearts of those who received them. But one evening, the stars themselves seemed to shift as a fateful error unfolded. A letter adrift. The village of Wisterwhistle was fast asleep, its thatched cottages nestled under the watchful eye of the moon. The streets were quiet, save for the occasional murmur of the breeze rustling through the trees. The mail carrier moved with her usual grace, pausing before the small, crooked house of Arthur Tuttle. Arthur was a boy of boundless imagination, but his dreams often turned to nightmares. Shadows flickered in his mind, transforming harmless shapes into looming creatures. His fear of the dark weighed on him like an invisible cloak. Reaching into her satchel, the mail carrier retrieved a glowing letter meant just for Arthur. The golden paper pulsed softly, and its message gleamed faintly. The bravest hearts are the quietest. But as she leaned forward to slip the letter under his windowsill, a mischievous gust of wind swept through the street, tugging the letter from her hands. It danced away, floating on invisible currents. The mail carrier gasped softly, her silver eyes widening as the letter drifted higher, carried by the playful breeze. She chased it through the village, her cloak trailing behind her like a ribbon, but the wind was faster. The glowing letter slipped through the branches of the Wister-Whistle forest and into the window of a girl who was not meant to receive it. Ellie Mayhew. Ellie and the golden letter. Ellie Mayhew was unlike any child in the village. While other children spent their days running through the meadows or skipping stones by the brook, Ellie could often be found perched high in the old maple tree near her home, her notebook balanced on her knees. She dreamed of faraway lands, of great adventures, and of places where the ordinary turned into the extraordinary. But her vivid imagination often made her feel out of place. The other children didn't understand her longing to explore the unknown. That night, as Ellie lay in bed, she felt something strange beneath her pillow. Sitting up, she reached under it and pulled out a glowing letter. The paper was warm to the touch, its light soft and golden, like the first rays of dawn. Unfolding it, Ellie read the single line of silver text. "Within you lies the light that will guide the way." The words sent a shiver down her spine, not of fear but of wonder. She pressed the letter to her chest and closed her eyes. For the first time in a long while, Ellie didn't feel so small. Arthur's fearful vigil. Across the village, Arthur tossed and turned, unable to sleep. His small lantern flickered on his bedside table, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Arthur had always been afraid of the dark. Every creak of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind became something sinister in his mind. Tonight was no different, except for the strange, gnawing feeling that something was missing. He didn't know it, but his letter, the one that might have brought him peace, was now resting in Ellie's hands. A golden path. The moon had begun its slow descent when Ellie felt it. A tug, gentle but insistent, as if her heartstrings were being pulled by an unseen hand. She climbed out of bed, opened her window, and gasped. A glowing trail of golden light stretched out from her house, winding into the forest. It shimmered softly, like a ribbon of stars. At the same moment, Arthur sat up in bed, drawn to his own window by a faint glimmer. A similar trail stretched from his home, weaving through the trees. Curiosity and courage stirred within them both, and without knowing why, they each stepped outside to follow the light. The forest beckons. The Wister-Whistle forest was a place of ancient magic. Its trees were tall and wise, their branches stretching high into the sky like arms reaching for the stars. Ellie walked with purpose, her bare feet brushing against mossy ground. The glowing trail lit her way, illuminating the path ahead with a soft golden glow. She didn't feel afraid. The forest, though dark, felt alive and welcoming, as if it knew her name. Arthur's footsteps were hesitant, his lantern shaking in his hands. The glow of his trail reflected in his wide eyes, giving him the courage to take each step forward. Deeper they went, until their trails merged in a moonlit clearing. the silver tree. In the center of the clearing stood a magnificent tree, its bark shimmering like polished silver. Its branches stretched wide, draped with leaves that glowed faintly, casting soft light across the clearing. Standing beneath the tree was the mail carrier. Her silver cloak billowed gently in the night breeze, and her eyes gleamed with quiet wisdom. "You've both been brought here for a reason," she said, her voice as soft as the rustle of leaves. Arthur and Ellie stared at each other, then at the mail carrier. Neither spoke, but the air between them buzzed with curiosity. "Courage is a light," the mail carrier continued, "but it is not meant to burn alone. It grows when it is shared, and it leads to places you cannot yet imagine. Tonight you will discover its true power." The living maze. The mail carrier stepped aside, revealing a towering stone archway hidden behind the silver tree. Beyond it lay a maze, its walls alive with glowing vines that pulsed faintly in the dark. "You must enter the maze together," she said. "It will test you, but you will not be alone." Ellie felt a thrill of excitement, while Arthur's heart thudded in his chest. "What if we can't find our way out?" he whispered. Ellie took his hand, her grip steady and warm. "We'll find a way," she said, "one step at a time." The trials of the maze. Inside the maze, the air was cool and still. The walls shifted subtly, creating new paths as the children walked. Soft whispers floated through the air, tugging at their fears and doubts. Arthur faced shadowy figures that flickered at the edge of his vision. His heart pounded, but Ellie's steady presence kept him grounded. "Look," she said, pointing to his lantern. "Its light is stronger than the shadows." Ellie, meanwhile, encountered challenges that tested her deepest insecurities. At one point, the path split in two, and she had to trust her instincts to choose the right way. Arthur's encouragement gave her the confidence to move forward. Step by step, they discovered that courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about trusting themselves and each other. The heart of the maze. At the center of the maze, they found a pool of water so still it reflected the stars above. The mail carrier was waiting for them, her silver cloak glowing softly. "You've done well," she said, her voice warm with pride. "The light within you has grown, and now it shines brighter than ever." She handed each of them a glass pendant, inside which swirled a tiny golden light. "This is a piece of the courage you've found tonight. Keep it close, and remember, true bravery is not the absence of fear, but the choice to face it." Home again. As the first light of dawn broke over Wister Whistle, Ellie and Arthur returned to their village. They didn't speak much, but they didn't need to. The bond they had formed spoke louder than words. Arthur slept peacefully that morning, the pendant glowing faintly on his nightstand. Ellie, meanwhile, sat by her window, dreaming of adventures to come. And somewhere, beneath the fading moon, the mail carrier prepared for her next journey, her glowing satchel once again filled with letters meant to light the way for those who needed it most. The Feather of Dreams. On the edge of a quiet village, where the rolling hills met a vast, ancient forest, there lived a boy named Finn. He had an unshakable curiosity that set him apart from the other children. His friends loved to play games and run through the meadows, but Finn spent his time gazing at the horizon or tracing his fingers along the edges of maps he'd drawn himself, imagining all the faraway places he might one day explore. His small room, tucked under the sloping roof of his family's cottage, was decorated with sketches of mountains, oceans, and strange lands. But no matter how hard Finn tried to picture the world beyond his village, he always felt like something was missing, some piece of the puzzle he couldn't yet see. Then one evening, just as the sun began to dip behind the hills and paint the sky with streaks of gold and lavender, Finn wandered into the forest. He often went there to think, to dream, or simply to lose himself among the tall trees and the whisper of the wind. It was in this moment of quiet that he saw it, a single feather lying on a patch of moss, glowing faintly as if it had caught the last rays of sunlight. The feather shimmered like liquid gold, and Finn's breath caught in his chest as he crouched down to pick it up. It was impossibly soft, so delicate it seemed to hum with life. As he held it, a faint warmth spread through his fingertips, and he swore he could hear a faint melody, like a song carried on the wind. "What are you?" Finn whispered, turning the feather over in his hands. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. As the daylight faded, Finn tucked the feather carefully into his pocket and hurried home. That night, as he lay in bed with the feather clutched in his hand, he felt an inexplicable sense of comfort. Without thinking, he slipped it under his pillow. The moment his head touched the pillow, Finn felt a strange, soothing sensation, as if the world around him had shifted. Sleep came quickly, more quickly than it ever had before, and as it did, his dreams unfolded in vivid, breathtaking detail. In his dream, Finn found himself standing at the edge of a vast desert. The sand glowed softly under a purple sky, and a caravan of travelers moved gracefully across the dunes. Their laughter mingled with the sound of bells tied to their camels, creating a melody that danced on the warm breeze. The dream shifted, and Finn was suddenly in a forest unlike any he had ever seen. The trees were impossibly tall, their leaves glowing with golden light. Birds with plumage like gemstones flitted from branch to branch, singing a song that seemed to harmonize with the rustling of the leaves. Then Finn stood on the deck of a great ship that sailed across a shimmering ocean. The water sparkled with a light of its own, and the air was filled with the scent of salt and adventure. On the horizon, he could see islands crowned with silver mist, each promising untold wonders. When Finn awoke the next morning, the memories of his dream were so vivid that he could still feel the warm sand beneath his feet and hear the gentle splash of waves. Reaching under his pillow, he pulled out the feather. It was glowing more brightly than before, as if it too remembered the wonders of his dream. From that night on, Finn placed the feather under his pillow before bed, eager to see where it would take him. Each dream was more beautiful than the last, carrying him to lands he had never imagined. He explored deep caves filled with crystals that glowed like stars, walked through ancient cities whose streets shimmered with golden light, and danced beneath skies alive with swirling constellations. The dreams brought Finn a sense of wonder and joy that lingered long after he woke. During the day, he would sketch the places he'd visited, trying to capture the details of every tree, every mountain, every ripple of water. His friends laughed and called him a daydreamer, but Finn didn't mind. The feather had opened a door to something magical, and he cherished every moment of it. But as the days turned into weeks, Finn began to notice something strange. The feather's glow was growing brighter with each passing night, and the dreams, though beautiful, started to feel more urgent. One evening, just before bed, Finn held the feather in his hands, turning it over in the moonlight. It felt warmer than usual, and the faint melody it seemed to hum was louder now, more distinct. "What are you trying to tell me?" Finn whispered. That night his dream began differently. Instead of finding himself in a faraway place, he stood in a field under a sky filled with swirling stars. The feather hovered in front of him, glowing brighter than ever. Then a figure appeared. They were tall and radiant, with wings made of shimmering light, and their eyes held the wisdom of countless years. "Finn," the figure said, their voice soft and melodic. "You have been chosen by the feather of dreams, a gift from the winds of faraway lands. The feather carries the magic of every place it has touched, allowing you to see the world beyond your own." Finn stared, his heart pounding. "Why me?" "Because your heart longs to explore," the figure replied. "But the feather's magic is more than dreams. It holds a deeper power, one that can only be unlocked if you are brave enough to follow where it leads." Finn tilted his head. "Follow where it leads? How do I do that?" "Place the feather in the moonlight," the figure said, "and it will show you the way." Finn awoke with a start, the figure's words echoing in his mind. He glanced at the feather, which now pulsed softly in the early morning light. That night, as the moon rose high in the sky, Finn carried the feather to his windowsill. The moonlight spilled across the room like a silver river, and as soon as the feather touched it, its glow intensified. Suddenly, a thin beam of light shot out from the feather, pointing toward the forest. Finn's heart raced. The feather wasn't just bringing him dreams anymore, it was guiding him to something real. The forest was quiet as Finn made his way along the glowing path the feather had created. The trees, which had always seemed imposing in the dark, now felt alive with magic. Their leaves rustled softly, as if whispering encouragement. The path led him deeper than he had ever gone before, to a clearing bathed in moonlight. At its center stood an ancient tree, its bark shimmering faintly with a silvery glow. The feather's light pointed directly at the tree. Finn approached cautiously, his footsteps muffled by the mossy ground. As he reached the tree, he noticed a small hollow in its trunk, perfectly shaped to hold the feather. Taking a deep breath, Finn placed the feather into the hollow. The moment the feather touched the tree, a ripple of light spread across the clearing, illuminating every leaf and blade of grass. The air hummed with energy, and the tree began to glow brighter and brighter until a doorway appeared in its trunk. Beyond the doorway was a world of light and color, swirling with the same magic Finn had seen in his dreams. Finn hesitated, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and fear. Then, summoning his courage, he stepped through. Finn found himself standing in a place unlike any other. The grass beneath his feet glowed softly, and the sky above was a tapestry of shifting colors. Rivers of silver wove through the landscape, and mountains with glittering peaks loomed in the distance. In the air around him floated creatures of light, their wings leaving trails of gold and blue as they danced through the sky. The air was filled with the sound of distant melodies, as if the wind itself was singing. Finn laughed aloud, spinning in place as he tried to take it all in. This was the world from his dreams, a place where the impossible became possible. The radiant figure from his dream appeared once more, their wings casting a soft glow. "Welcome, Finn," they said. "You have entered the realm of the wandering winds, where the feather's magic was born. Few are chosen to walk these lands, but your curiosity and courage have brought you here." Finn's eyes sparkled with wonder. "What do I do now?" "Explore," the figure said, smiling. "Learn, grow, and carry the magic of this place back with you. The feather is not just a gift, it is a responsibility. Share the light you found, and you will keep its magic alive." Finn spent what felt like days exploring the realm of the wandering winds. He climbed mountains that touched the sky, sailed across shimmering rivers, and danced with creatures of light. Everywhere he went, he felt the feather's magic guiding him, filling him with a sense of wonder and purpose. When it was time to return home, Finn stepped back through the glowing doorway, the feather now pulsing with a deeper, more radiant light. He placed it carefully under his pillow that night, knowing its magic would always be with him. And as he drifted off to sleep, he dreamed not just of faraway places, but of the endless possibilities that awaited him in the waking world. The Wandering Lighthouse. In a small village perched on the edge of a rugged coastline, there stood a lighthouse unlike any other. It was an ancient structure, its stone walls weathered by the salt and wind of countless storms, and its light as steady as the North Star. The villagers called it the Beacon of Solace, for its warm golden glow had guided countless sailors to safety over the years. The keeper of the lighthouse was a quiet soul named Marin, who had cared for it for as long as anyone could remember. Marin had a gentle touch and a watchful eye, tending to the great glass lens and polishing the brass mechanisms so the light never faltered. The lighthouse was more than just a job to Marin. It was a companion, a steadfast friend in the lonely hours of the night. Every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the waves shimmered under the moonlight, Marin climbed the spiraling stairs to the lantern room. From there, she could see the endless sea stretching out into the dark, its surface rippling like liquid silver. And every morning she awoke to the sound of waves breaking against the rocks, her home standing firm on its cliffside perch. But one morning, everything changed. The lighthouse at Seamarin awoke to a sound she couldn't immediately place. It wasn't the familiar crash of waves against the rocky shore or the soft cry of gulls circling overhead. This sound was different, gentler, more rhythmic, like the steady lapping of water against wood. Blinking away the haze of sleep, she sat up in her small bed and rubbed her eyes. The first thing she noticed was the light, bright and golden, streaming through her windows in curious patterns that danced across the walls. Then she felt the subtle, unfamiliar sway beneath her feet. Frowning, Marin stood and made her way to the door. When she stepped outside, she froze. the cliffside was gone. The familiar coastline with its jagged rocks and winding trails had vanished. Instead, the lighthouse stood in the middle of the vast, open sea, its stone foundation rising out of the water as if it had always been there. The waves lapped gently against the base of the lighthouse, and in the distance, the horizon stretched endlessly, unbroken by land. A soft breeze carried the scent of salt and the faintest hint of something floral, something Maren couldn't quite place. Her heart raced, but not with fear. The scene was too serene, too magical for fear to take root. Instead, Maren felt a quiet awe, as though she were standing inside a dream. It wasn't long before Maren noticed something else, something that made her breath catch in her throat. Far out on the horizon, barely visible against the morning mist, was a ship. Its sails were torn and tattered, hanging limply from the masts, and its hull tilted precariously to one side. The ship was adrift, its movements sluggish and aimless. Maren felt a surge of urgency. The lighthouse, as if sensing her thoughts, seemed to hum faintly beneath her feet, its light glowing brighter. Without hesitation, she climbed the spiraling stairs to the lantern room, where the great glass lens turned steadily, casting its golden beam across the water. As Maren reached the top, she placed her hands gently on the polished brass railing and gazed out at the ship. The light from the lantern swept across the waves, illuminating the path to the lighthouse with a steady, comforting glow. To her amazement, the ship began to respond. Slowly but surely it turned toward the light, its battered sails catching the faint breeze. As the ship drew closer, Maren could make out its details. A once grand vessel with a proud figurehead shaped like a leaping dolphin. But now the ship bore the marks of a long and arduous journey. Its wood was weathered, its ropes frayed, and its flag tattered. The ship came to rest near the base of the lighthouse, its hull bobbing gently in the waves. Maren made her way down to the lighthouse's stone landing, where a small rowboat waited as if summoned by some unseen force. Climbing into the boat, she rowed toward the ship, her arms steady as the oars dipped into the calm water. As she approached, she called out, "Ahoy! Is anyone aboard?" For a moment there was no response. Then a figure appeared at the railing. A young man with tired eyes and wind-tousled hair. He wore a captain's coat that had clearly seen better days, and his expression was one of equal parts relief and disbelief. "You saved us," he called down, his voice hoarse but filled with gratitude. Maren smiled gently. "The light saved you. What happened to your ship?" The captain shook his head, his gaze distant. "We were caught in a storm days ago. The wind tore our sails and the waves battered us until we lost our bearings. We've been adrift ever since with no land in sight. I feared we'd never make it home." As Maren climbed aboard, she felt the hum of the lighthouse's magic even from a distance. It was as if the great stone structure were watching over them, its light a steady reassurance. The crew, though weary, gathered on deck to greet Maren. They were a small group, their faces lined with exhaustion, but their eyes alight with hope. Maren offered them bread and water she had brought from the lighthouse, and as they ate, the captain spoke. "This is no ordinary lighthouse," he said, glancing at the glowing beacon in the distance. "It's as though it came to find us, to pull us from the edge of despair." Marin nodded slowly. The lighthouse has always felt alive to me, but this is the first time it's ever moved. The captain studied her for a moment, then smiled. Perhaps it knows you care for it, and it cares for you in return. As evening fell, the crew found comfort in the lighthouse's warm light. The men slept on the deck of their ship, their breathing soft and even as the waves rocked them gently. Marin, too, felt a profound sense of peace as she climbed the spiraling stairs to the lantern room. She stood by the great lens, watching as its golden beam swept across the darkened sea. The stars above were brighter than she had ever seen, their light mingling with the glow of the lantern. For the first time, Marin realized just how much she trusted the lighthouse. Not just as a building, but as a companion. It had carried her far out to sea to save a ship in need, and she felt certain it would bring her safely home when the time was right. The next morning, as the first light of dawn painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, Marin stood on the stone landing, bidding farewell to the captain and his crew. The ship, though battered, was ready to sail once more, its sails patched and its course set. "Thank you, Marin," the captain said, his voice earnest. "We owe our lives to you and your lighthouse." Marin shook her head, a small smile on her lips. "The lighthouse saw you were in need, and it brought us together. Safe travels, Captain." The ship sailed off into the horizon, its crew waving until they were just a speck on the endless sea. As Marin watched them go, she felt the lighthouse hum beneath her feet. The golden beam of light dimmed slightly, and the air grew still. Then, slowly but surely, the lighthouse began to move. It was a gentle, almost imperceptible motion, as though the sea itself were carrying the great stone structure. Marin climbed to the lantern room and gazed out at the water, watching as the coastline gradually came into view. By the time the sun was high in the sky, the lighthouse had returned to its perch on the rocky cliffs, standing as steady and timeless as ever. From that day on, Marin tended to the lighthouse with a newfound sense of wonder. She knew now that it was more than just a beacon of light. It was a living, magical entity, capable of extraordinary things. The villagers, unaware of the lighthouse's journey, continued to go about their days, grateful for its steady glow. But Marin knew the truth, and she carried it in her heart like a treasured secret. And every evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle in the darkened sky, Marin climbed the spiraling stairs to the lantern room. She would place her hand gently on the polished brass railing, gazing out at the endless sea, and whisper, "Thank you for choosing me." The lighthouse never replied, but its warm golden light was all the answer she needed. Sweet dreams, dear listener. May your adventures take you to magical lands and bring you safely home.